got a chance to do one thing that every team in the country can't do. We got a chance to step up, man. We got a chance to step on the ledge, you know what I mean? And to me, I think it's a free fall. To be elite, you got to take a free fall. That means you can't be afraid to go to the edge. And coach said, jump. You said, how far, coach? Where you want me to go? Every guy got a chance to do that today. If you're elite, grab somebody today. Take him with you. There's no more average in this program. There's no more average in this program.
The faithful around Knoxville think that Nico Iamaleava has the talent to be a breakout star for the Volunteers, and Josh Heupel is the coach that could potentially give him that type of scheme and that type of fit. Hi, everybody. I am Colin Bashnigal, your host here at Bash's College Football Show. You can find me on other networks like TikTok and see me on Bash's CFB show over there, or the link down in the description, along with my Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, in the Twitch. Both going to be linked with the TikTok in the description down below. I would also ask that you guys do comment what you think about Tennessee. Like the video. It will definitely help, especially if you stick around very long. It will definitely help the algorithm. So if you like the video, and subscribe if you want to keep following my content. I would really appreciate it. You are not required to, but obviously it would be very much appreciated on my side of things. So today we're going to talk about the Tennessee Volunteers and Josh Heupel going into what is fourth year as the head coach after having a breakout year a couple of years ago, a little bit of a downtick to 9-4 last year. Not exactly looking like the same type of offense against teams like Missouri and Alabama specifically in that second half, but they started to get things rolling towards the end of the year and looking pretty good offensively in the bowl game against a stingy Iowa defense. Nico Iamaleava looked very good. He's going to be replacing Joe Milton, who's going to be off to the NFL. Two running backs, Jalen Wright and Jabari Small, are also gone, but towards the end of the season, true freshman Dylan Sampson was really starting to become a star for this team. Longtime wide receiver Ramel Keaton is going to be gone, but they're going to be just fine at the wide receiver position. It's the tight end position that they're going to have more questions, that we're going to be talking about what their answers are to those questions with losing McCullen Castles from last year's roster. On the defensive side, really the one guy they lost to the NFL draft was Kamala Haddon. But with that being said, I'm looking at the transfer portal. This secondary is definitely depleted for sure. If you take a look at these secondary players that left in the portal, Nico Slaughter was a guy that played a good bit. Same with Brandon Turnage. They're both gone, both these cornerbacks. One of them, Slaughter, going to Arkansas. One of them, Turnage, going to Ole Miss. Two safeties are also gone. Tamarian McDonald played a whole lot last year, and he's going off to Louisville. And Jack Luttrell, a depth piece and somebody that could definitely be a guy that buys for playing time. He's going off to Arizona to play for Brent Brennan over there. So overall, like you're talking about, a secondary completely depleted. You don't really lose much else, though, outside of the secondary. But there's going to be massive questions in that secondary for Tennessee this year. We already hinted at Nico Iamaleava, who I think is an absolute stud, talented kid. And the question is his development going to be there to be the starter all year? Dylan Sampson, is he going to be alone in the backfield all by himself? A couple of other kids like Cameron Sheldon is going to have to be a guy that steps up, or somebody else in that running back room. But we know that Dylan Sampson can be the guy to really tote that rock and be a stud for this team. They also return a lot out at wide receiver. You get guys like Brew McCoy back, Squirrel White back, and Dante Thornton. And talking about this wide receiver room, Chris Brazzell coming in from Tulane is an absolute stud, has a lot of big-time tools to potentially be an NFL player one day. He's one of my sleepers on this team that he's going to start at probably that little Z spot. And I think he's going to be a beast in the system. And overall, I think that their wide receiver room, when you add in guys like Mikey Matthews, the true freshman, who I think is a stud freshman, a big-time recruit, I think that this Tennessee wide receiver room is deep, and I think that they're definitely scary, and this is going to be a great offense. How are they addressing that tight end position? Well, they do have a younger kid in Ethan Davis who's going to take some reps that this coaching staff is high on. But a guy like Holden Stays coming in from Notre Dame, and an experienced guy as well for like Miles Kitzelman, who's probably not going to start, but not even really going to see the field much. But he comes in from a prestigious program like Alabama. Those are two guys that were definitely good adds in the portal. They also added Lance Hurd on the offensive line from LSU, a tackle that is probably going to start for this team, which was really the one hole was they needed that other tackle on the other side of John Campbell Jr. And on the interior, I feel like they're fine. Javonte Spraggins is a really good player who started last year. The center, Cooper Mays, also started last year, and he's really, really good longtime starter for this team. And Jackson Lampley is the one that's going to step up, who had playing time as really that next rotational guy in the interior of the offensive line. He's a talented kid. He's going to be kind of the weak point of that interior, but I think he's going to be really, really good. On the defensive side of the ball, you bring back the stud edge rusher, James Pierce, and that's going to be big time when you have secondary concerns. If you can get a pass rush on the quarterback ain't going to have a lot of time to throw the ball against the suspect secondary. And it certainly helps that he has a couple of really talented interior guys like Omari Thomas is an absolute freak show. Big number 21 in the middle. Bryson Eason as well as a nose tackle. And they also brought in a little bit of depth through the transfer portal. They got a couple of other guys, and I'm not sure if even Jackson Moy is going to see the field, but Jackson Moy does add depth to that, and they addressed it in the transfer portal, felt it necessary. They did also address the secondary issues in the transfer portal, and who knows, maybe the addressing definitely helps the depth. So if you guys remember last year for you Tennessee fans, you added Andre Turrentine coming in from Ohio State. He's the guy that's been in the system for a year that is coming back in the secondary. A couple of guys that you're adding as first-year players you have in the system, that is. You have Drummond McCoy coming in from Oregon State, a solid defensive back, definitely going to help you a lot. And then two younger player, or not younger, smaller school players from a couple years ago that you don't necessarily know a ton about. And quite honestly, I don't even know if they can guard SEC wide receivers on a regular basis. We're going to have to see it. It's cornerback Jalen McMurray coming in from Temple and the safety Jacoby Thomas coming in from Middle Tennessee State. They look like good players on tape, but what are they going to do when they're going to be faced with that week in, week out competition? So overall, I think that everybody knows their holes, but this offense looks like it could definitely be elite if it certainly stays healthy. And I think that this defense also has a lot of great parts to it in which they're going to be able to really utilize to their benefit when it comes to bringing the secondary up to par through the course of the season. So as we break down that roster, we get into these schedule predictions. You got to realize what Tennessee's going to be good at against a lot of these teams. And we're going to start with these first three games. Chattanooga should be an easy win for the Tennessee Volunteers, but then they're going to be playing NC State in Charlotte week 2. This is going to be a massive game. If they lose this game, I think that their hopes to make the college football playoff are going to be severely diminished off of that loss. I think they win. I think that this is going to be a great game. I am high on NC State this year. I think this is one of the more talented teams Dave Doran's had there, and he's done a good job there. He's had a lot of solid teams. But at the end of the day, this offense is going to be clicking off the rap, off the beat. Like, they're going to be really good. I'm super high on Nico Iamaleava. I love this offensive line. I like the ability for them to run the ball with Dylan Sampson. And I love the depth at wide receiver. Holden Stays, I think, is also going to be a really good utilization at the tight end position that nobody's going to talk about. And I think what I've heard about Ethan Davis, he's going to be really good. I think all of these tools on offense will mask the secondary enough for them to be able to beat NC State in Charlotte. Then I think that they beat Kent State, no problem. This was probably the worst team in FBS last season. To me, it's without a shadow of a doubt they were the worst. I don't think they're going to be that much better. Tennessee fans, you're going to be mad at this one. I think you lose at Oklahoma before the bye. This is going to be a matchup in which you do get your secondary severely tested. This is a talented quarterback. This is Jackson Arnold versus Nico Iamaleava. When you look at that class that they came in with, those guys were 1 and 2 in everybody's minds, including my own. Jackson Arnold, Nico Iamaleava, those were the two best, other than, like, you could throw Arch Manning in there, right? I don't even throw Arch Manning in there, at least yet. Like, I want to at least see if the kid can play. Jackson Arnold and Nico Iamaleava, they were top of that class as well. I like Jackson Arnold to get the win because of what's going to be around him. I think that defense at Oklahoma is not going to be super bad. The one concern I do have in this game and picking this loss, this is the matchup that I think Tennessee fans are going to be highlighting that week. It's going to be James Pierce and that pass rush against a suspect offensive line at Oklahoma. I'm excited to see this matchup. We got this home-and-home series a couple years ago, and it was really, really good, especially that overtime game in Neyland Stadium. I think Oklahoma wins this, but I definitely don't think it's going to be easy. It's going to be a lot of, will the pass rush win the game for Tennessee in that one, or will Oklahoma's passing offense be able to carry the rock or take the win home, or keep it home, I guess, for Oklahoma? I think they come off the bye and they beat Arkansas pretty handily. Everybody knows my thoughts on Arkansas this year. And then I think they beat Florida too. You know, I got a lot of criticism for saying Florida would upset Texas A&M. They are not going into Neyland Stadium. Like, I am not that high on Florida. I think they're talented enough to where they can pull off maybe an upset or two. But just a spoiler alert for when I preview Florida, who's the next team I'm going to talk about, I am not that high on the Florida Gators right now. I'm just not. So I'm taking Tennessee to win that football game for sure. And then if you saw my Alabama preview, I had Tennessee beating Alabama. I don't necessarily know if they're going to have the vertical threats to take advantage of Tennessee's weakness. And I certainly think that their questions on in the secondary themselves is definitely going to get diced up in Neyland Stadium again by Josh Heupel. Now, was it Alex Golesh? Was it Josh Heupel? It was Josh Heupel. Like, this is his offense, and whatever success that Alex Golesh brought, you saw in moments last year that Josh Heupel kept those same principles that Alex Golesh potentially left. So just because Alex Golesh is gone and you feel like he had a bigger impact than what people try to tell you, doesn't mean that his impact's not still on Tennessee's coaching staff right now. And I think that this matchup is not good for Alabama. It's on the road at Neyland Stadium with the offense that they're going to have. I'm taking Tennessee to win. And then I think they beat Kentucky off of the bye. Getting a bye week right after Alabama is a super gift from the SEC commissioner's office because of the fact that you're not going to handle that trap situation off of the high of all highs against with beating Alabama. And I think they beat Mississippi State too, though I think that game might be close just because of the fact that they're going to be looking ahead to Georgia, who's their next game. They're on the highest of highs. They're going to be ranked probably in the top 5 or at the very least top 8, with Oklahoma being their only loss. I think they're going to be super high, and I think they're going to kind of struggle a little bit with Mississippi State, who I think is a team that's underappreciated. But I do not think that Jeff Levy's squad is going to be able to muster up an upset in Neyland Stadium. And by the way, I just said that you got given a gift by the SEC commissioner's office by giving Tennessee a bye. If you pay attention here, Florida's at home, Alabama's at home, Kentucky's at home, Mississippi State's at home. Unless I have something mistaken, and it makes me want to look, that's 3-4 straight home games, and with a bye being the 1 week that you don't have a home game. That is insane to me. Now, I'm going to correct myself live right here on recording if I'm wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure Florida home, Alabama home, Kentucky home, Mississippi State home. Like, you're making SEC, you're making me feel like I'm making a mistake here. What are we doing? Giving Tennessee this is not like a Tennessee hate video or anything like that, but giving Tennessee that kind of like scapegoat of getting a bye right after Alabama, fine, whatever, it works itself out. Giving them 4 straight home games in conference play with that bye week, they're like, well, they could have put an out. Who? Tennessee's going to play Notre Dame at Notre Dame. No, they're not doing that. Why would you do that? You already have NC State. You don't need to do that. This isn't on Tennessee. This isn't Tennessee's fault. Tennessee shouldn't get punished for this. This schedule sets up so well for Tennessee because of how this stretch lands for Tennessee. But this all leads up to a loss at Georgia. Look, I think a lot of people won't necessarily disagree with me about the loss against Georgia. The bottom line is I think there's levels to this, and I think that Georgia's going to be on another level to where their weaknesses are going to still be strengths for a lot of other teams. Like their secondary is something that's getting a little bit questioned, or their running back depth. those are like rich man issues at the highest level. And I think Tennessee's issues cannot compare to Georgia's issues. Like Georgia's issues are far less significant than Tennessee's issues, even this deep into the season. I think Georgia's just going to be a much better team than them. A lot of Tennessee fans got mad at me when I said that Georgia was going to absolutely smoke them in Athens 2 years ago. I wouldn't be surprised if, though, I think that this Tennessee team might be a tick better because I think they're a little better on defense. And I think that they might have an even more talented quarterback than even Hendon Hooker was, who was still really good. I think that they're going to lose pretty comfortably against Georgia on the road. And that's not hate. It is what it is, though. You beat UTEP pretty easily, and then you win at Vanderbilt, closing out the season at 10-2, 6-2 in conference. And the real question I'm going to have is, of course, we don't know what the landscape is around college football when it comes to how many teams are 11-1, 12-0, 11-1, 10-2. Like, how many layers of this? Do we have to dip into the 9-3s? And then will they factor in the fact that Tennessee got a lucky draw in conference? Like, they play both Alabama and Georgia. Don't get it twisted. But they don't play teams like they don't play a lot of that second tier. And a lot of people would agree that second tier consists of like Missouri. And a lot of people would agree that that second tier consists of Texas for sure. I mean, that's first tier. They're ahead of Alabama right there. You get Alabama at home in a streak of 4 straight games. You dodge Texas A&M, who I think potentially, if you watch my Texas A&M preview, it's going to pop up somewhere. Maybe it's going to be in the SEC playlist. I can promise you that. I think Texas A&M is a very talented team and one to be dangerous. They dodge Ole Miss. They dodge the danger zone. That's LSU. Their conference schedule, they play Florida. They play Arkansas. They play Vanderbilt. They play the bottom of the conference, Mississippi State. They got a good draw. So even though I have them going 10-2 and 6-2 in the conference, will they have a strong enough strength of schedule to make the 12-team playoff? If I'm going to give you the honest answer right now, I'd say probably. But especially if they beat NC State and NC State ends up being a contender for the ACC. But I'm just saying they got to go 2-2 in the 4 big games. And the 4 big games are versus NC State, at Oklahoma, at home against Alabama, and at Georgia. If they can go 2-2, I think they're in the playoff. It's that simple to me. I don't think they're losing another game outside of those 4. So thank you guys for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Make sure, like I said at the beginning, like the video if you did like the video, because that'll help the algorithm. But for now, I'll see you guys next time. Have yourselves a good evening.